There we go. And then share my webcam, right? Should that be on? There. That's probably for the best. Got it. Thank you so much, Zach. And then to move the slides.
So is the webinar live now?
Yes.
We're good. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'll do a little intro.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And then I'll just turn it over to you. That's for the web? Okay, awesome. All right, it's gotten quiet, so I guess everybody's ready to start. Welcome, everyone. My name is Charles Rudd. I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Newport Richey. And we're just happy to have you here. This is another series of planning meetings that happened last week. We met an introductory meeting for a larger planning of a US 19 corridor in the downtown area. And today's meeting is really zeroing in on the area, the intersection of Main and US 19, the block we call Rivergate, west end of Main Street, Home District, however you want to describe it. And the folks from the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council are here, and we're going to turn it over to Sarah Vitale, right? And she's going to lead us through this, get some input from you, show you some conceptual ideas, and I'll take it from there.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna just try to talk loudly. So if you can't hear me, just let me know and I'll speak loudly. Thank you for being here. We're really excited today to kind of continue these conversations and build upon some of the planning work that we know is in process. I attended last week's meeting via the webinar and heard a lot of really great ideas and discussions about what we can do with the downtown area with your help. So we're excited to continue that and build upon this renaissance that we're seeing in our downtown. My name is Sarah Vitale. I'm with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and I'm joined by my colleague, Harry Walsh. Harry, say hello. Who's also working on this project along with Randy DeShazo, who's our Director of Planning and Research. The Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, our mission is to serve our citizens and member governments from throughout the Tampa Bay region. We work with 6 counties and 21 municipalities, and we work on projects related to economic development, emergency preparedness, environmental planning, resiliency, and decision support. And today we're here to really discuss that decision support service that we provide. So decision support, one of the things that we've been doing since the CARES Act was funded, we've been working with local governments from throughout the Tampa Bay region on short and impactful studies that support economic recovery. So our goal in this case is to work with the City of Newport Richey to develop a what-if analysis for different development scenarios in the downtown Rivergate district. And that process that we use for decision support is a mixture of 3D visualization, which I'll provide a few examples of in just a few minutes, and then economic analysis. And we use these tools to test ideas, to compare planning alternatives, identify priorities, and develop consensus among different community groups. So we're talking about the Rivergate district, otherwise known as the Palm District in downtown Newport Richey. And we began to start to think about this Palm District when we started working with our council representative, Councilman Peter Altman, who's here today. Thanks for being here. To kind of think about some of the issues that area of our downtown may be facing, particularly when it comes to flooding. So we're thinking about the issue of water, and what if we could rethink water as going from a challenge into an opportunity. So I'd like to show you a quick video, hopefully it comes right up, where we worked with the city to do a what if small scenario analysis of that area of downtown, rethinking water and thinking about resiliency to flooding.
Right now, it doesn't look like much, but Newport Richey City Council will keep all impulses this property could represent the future of city development.
The city just recently purchased a corner of 19th May, and we'll hold some other property. And so this entire block might be a good place for us to have an exercise.
All been approached the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council about putting together a rapid redesign exercise. It shows how potential storm rise, storm surge, and inland flooding could be taken into account in planning development.
Here's an example of the storm pond in the middle of more dense development.
Elevated buildings and porous pavement are other features included.
If this is something to consider, it's central in nature, so it's a way like this, but it takes into account resiliency, which is really very important these days.
According to a report from the Tampa Bay Climate Science Advisory Panel, sea levels have risen nearly 8 inches in the region since 1946 and could go up another 2 to 8.5 feet by the start of the next century. And that's why officials say the important to start preparing now.
And that they're doing nothing would be really the biggest thing.
That's why the council's executive director said they formed a resiliency coalition last year. It's made up of 29 local governments. So while this is the first exercise of its kind, chances are it will be the last. Sarah Rosonis, Spectrum News 9.
So that study, we did that for a CRA conference last fall. And then again, we took a look at that in more depth February. And then we got this CARES Act funding. So the city thought, let's go back to, thought it may be a good use of that funding to take a look again and expand the planning area just a little bit broadly. Excuse me, I'm trying to get it full screen for you all. There we go. So rethinking water as turning a challenge into an opportunity. That was our what if scenario in that case. And this is a 3D visualization that we created for the area in Rivergate, which you'll see again in just a few minutes. But rethinking all of that paved surface area to something that is designed to capture water and protect the buildings that surround it in the case of flooding or storm surge from a hurricane. So the schedule for this project, which is a look at the broader Rivergate area, is we're doing it in 2 phases. The first phase is the task 1 inventory and analysis, which is concluding at the end of this month. This is our first public meeting to wrap up this phase, which we will be presenting a SWOT analysis to the city before October 30th. Oh, thanks for telling me. Let me try to swap that. Is that all right? There we go. Thanks, Charles. So what we'll do is we'll prepare a SWOT analysis. Today, I'm prepared to talk through some of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for Rivergate as the Regional Planning Council and other planning groups have defined throughout the years in different planning studies. But I'm here really to get your input on what you think the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. And if you were attending last week's meeting, I'm sure that you heard a lot of this discussion. It's a very similar discussion, but it's important to start there. So that's what our focus is today, trying to answer the questions, where are we now? Where do we want to go? And then later, throughout this year, we'll come back and present to the city in January with some more 3D visualizations coupled with economic analysis to give us some ideas of what these types of things would actually cost and what the economic impacts of them could be, along with some of the economic benefits of those different types of scenarios. So that's the project in total. So we know that there's this other master planning process that's occurring. The Arnett Muldrow and Mahan Reichel are working with you all to build this master plan for the broader downtown area. And I am very impressed with their work so far. I think the brand that's been developed is very strong and has a lot of great opportunity for your downtown. So it's great and exciting to see that. We know that they have a few events coming up, so this is just a reminder that I hope that you'll attend their design charrette later this month and attend their public presentation to provide input on the ideas that they're working with you on. And how is our project different? Really in three major ways. We're focused on a smaller area. So they're talking about the entire downtown and even some of the US 19 corridor. We're on a smaller scale talking about the Rivergate or Palm District. Number two, a faster turnaround. Their planning process is going to take a while. It's a very in-depth process. They need to speak to lots of different community members. And in our approach, we want to do a quick, rapid turnaround so that our results can fold into their broader planning process. So that's our approach here. And then third, we're looking at targeted development options, thinking from a what-if mindset. So the city has proposed 4 different areas within the Rivergate that we're going to talk about more in depth in just a few minutes. And we know that there's already been a growing amount of planning that's occurring on the ground. I was pleased to see the city's Parks and Recreation Master Plan. I think it's a great piece of work. ULI, the Urban Land Institute, did a study about your downtown, which I thought was very interesting and kind of helps to inform what we're doing. There was a parking implementation study that was recently completed in 2018. We've got the CRA plan update. So there's been a lot happening lately, and it's very clear to see that there's a change happening in your downtown, really exciting, full of opportunity. So we're thrilled to be assisting with that. So before we move into our first discussion about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, I'd like to pause to see if there's any clarifying questions about our project, about the Regional Planning Council, and about our intentions in working with you all on the Rivergate master planning process. Any quick questions? Yeah?
You want to just repeat the question?
Sure. So the question, that's a great question. She's looking at our concept sketches, which we'll be talking about in a little while in more depth, but are some of these areas already purchased, the ones that are indicated as public use, the purple ones? That's something that we are definitely going to be talking about in just a little while. So I'll hold your question for now, if that's okay, and then we'll spend really the second half of this meeting diving into this map that you see in front of you. But that's a great question. Any other clarifying questions before we start to work on the SWOT analysis? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on. So again, our agenda, we really value your time and appreciate you being here. We want to be done within the 2 hours that we've allotted for this conversation. So we're going to start talking about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with thinking about these 2 questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? Pause for 10-minute break. You'll get to eat some of this great food provided by the city. Thank you again for that. And then we'll resume talking about the future and visioning and exploring this concept sketch you have on the table in front of you, developing vision strategies together and really providing your input. I would like you to physically draw and sketch ideas on these maps for us to be considering as we move into the second phase of this project. And then we'll close out with our next steps and just a few more reminders about this process. So the SWOT, really focused on 2 questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And when we think about where are we now, we're thinking about our existing conditions of this Rivergate area. And you'll see I've included 2 maps on your table. There's the one that's more colorful. That's my concept sketch. You can set that to the side. Really, we're focused on the blank map. That's our fresh canvas where I would like you guys to really think through the planning boundary and what's possible in that site when we get to the where do we want to go part of this conversation. But for where are we now, really focus on strengths and weaknesses. Strengths being favorable conditions that need to be built upon, things we like that we're seeing are really strengths and assets in this community. And then weaknesses, what are unfavorable things that we're seeing that really should be considered as we start to think about the future. And then later, opportunities, things that we want to build upon, that we should explore in the next phase of the project. And then threats, things that may present a full-on barrier that really need to be considered when we move into the next phase of this project. So with that, I don't want to duplicate efforts because all of those planning documents I presented just a few minutes ago, they all have elements of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats presented. So instead of me regurgitating that on you all, I put some of the highlights here. This graphic is from the CRA update, and it lists so many different assets and successes for your downtown. I list a few that I think really call out to me. The river, incredible natural asset that is running right through your downtown. Really lucky to have something just that's an incredible opportunity there. So I list it as your A+ strength. Main Street Bridge, Sims Park, a great investment that I think is really turning things around for you all. Orange Lake, the ability to walk downtown, this grid pattern that's around your downtown, its historic charm, quaint feeling of small town feeling, the different architectural variety in the buildings as you walk down Main Street, that has a really significant impact on pedestrian experience. Let's see, entrepreneurial spirit, seeing different sorts of shops popping up lately. A lot of community events. The Hacienda Hotel that's opening up soon, which I think is really another great potential opportunity here. The theater, this beautiful center we're sitting in. And then personal favorite, I really enjoyed the golf cart culture that I've seen so far. And, you know, we see lots of people getting around downtown in different ways, which I think is really unique and something that could be explored a bit more. So I'll pause. Those are the types of strengths I've seen in plans so far, things I heard last week. Am I missing anything? Is there anything else that you'd like us to know about in terms of strengths for your downtown? And if you have anything that you want to speak to us about, this is a great time to do it. Otherwise, please use the worksheet. We're on this page. Looks like this for viewers at home, where you can jot down some of your ideas as we move through this conversation. I'll pause. Any strengths before we move to weaknesses? Okay, great. I'm glad I've captured a lot of similar ideas when it comes to the strengths of the Rivergate district. Now, weaknesses. Similarly, the CRA plan includes this graphic of tons of different things that they identify as core issues and needs for downtown. Some of which are the visibility and the impressions that people get of your downtown and of your city more broadly when they come from US 19 into the city. Sometimes there's impressions. I read in a survey that the Arnett group did about when they were branding and marketing for your area. A lot of people responded in the survey that people thought, hey, is there even a town back there? Like, I can't tell from US 19 what's past all this strip mall that I can see that's welcoming me into your downtown. So I saw that as really a chief issue and something that is a great place to start, right? That's a great place to start with. So the visibility of your downtown from US 19, which is a major, collecting road, Main Street, collecting tons of people from US 19. So that's a big one for me. The appearance and feeling of Rivergate compared to the rest of your downtown. It has a different sense of place when you're in the Palm District compared to when you cross the bridge and you're in your more historic area of downtown. Feels like two completely disjunct places, right? So that's something that through placemaking and urban design, we can kind of start to bridge these two areas and make them feel like a cohesive downtown. So that was one of the things I noticed. There's a lot of underutilized properties. There may be issues with vacancies in those areas, trying to think about the root causes of some of that. Try to make sure that we are using this valuable property and bringing it to its highest and best use for the community. Thinking about, and I saw this a lot discussed last week, why do people come downtown? What are the reasons to come downtown? Is there enough variety of things to do and fun things to experience? So there were some great conversations last week about those types of things and how they may be a weakness. One other big one, the surface area, impervious surface area. So trying to make things a little bit more green instead of pavement can provide a lot of benefits for heat, because it's hot when you're walking out on the pavement, that you get that urban heat island effect, but also stormwater. If we were to bring some more greenery downtown, you'd have less issues with stormwater, things that could pay for itself over the long term. So that's another thing I noticed as well. Crime and safety, big topics in these surveys and discussions, blight, homelessness, trying to think through what the root causes of some of those issues are, code enforcement and cleanliness, and accessibility, making sure that there's enough sidewalks and that they're wide enough and that all people, no matter how they move through the downtown, can access it and enjoy it. So those are some of the initial weaknesses. This may be a 2-slider. It is. Access and traffic, that got its own slide, because I think that was a really chief concern. And I did some digging to try to figure out, what could be causing some of these issues. And it looks like there's steadily increasing traffic along Main Street. Could be for a variety of reasons, but it's happening. So from 2015 to 2019, we saw more and more traffic. So it's something that should be definitely considered when we think about how to redesign the newer areas of downtown, how to rethink our street network to try to alleviate some of the traffic, and really what are the chokeholds for traffic in our Main Street. So that was a big one. Parking can be a concern. Ways for people to get around aside from driving. So on the bus, in a car, on their scooters, in the golf carts, what kind of opportunities do we have to design the site for all mobility users or all mobility uses? Bicycle pedestrian safety and comfort, making sure there's appropriate comfortable seating, there's drinking fountains, and of course restrooms. These are all types of things that need to be considered when we rethink different sites in the downtown area. So before I move on to the next part of our SWOT, anything so far in terms of strengths or weaknesses that should be presented or spoken to the group, something that we're not, we haven't identified this far. Yes?
So for the weaknesses on the prior slide and this slide, what is the differentiation? Why are is the second slide like primary weaknesses you got from the, or what was the dimension of both? I just wonder why. What's the difference?
Great question. For the audience at home, he asked about these 2 slides and what if there's any distinction between weaknesses with these 2 different slides. And no, there isn't. Simply, I ran out of space and I wanted to include this this traffic map and diagram, so I needed 2 slides for that. The way I presented the list of different things isn't really in a particular order, or that I'm trying to emphasize more than the other, just kind of listing it on the slide.
Just look and being involved in some parking space in the past. Is a graffiti parking problem, and there's not a real parking problem right now in the downtown area. So just, I think it's perception of reality.
Interesting. And I have a quick question, because I see that issue with parking and also with crime. So I was wondering if there's a perceived sense of crime in the area as well, or if there's actual crime in the area, if anyone could speak to that. Yeah, okay.
So what you guys are talking about, and I want to say that it's not perceived in the sense that you feel threatened every day when you're out there, and it's not happening all the time, but the plight, the homelessness, and the people who are not mentally stable and we don't know exactly why, it does feel very threatening. Like I would never even need a nice person issue on my front porch because they need a person issue. I feel like they're going to break into my house and hurt me or my children.
Right. Thank you. Okay. And you, sir, you also said something about crime? Yeah.
We too have stolen off our house, off our front porch.
Mhm. Yeah. And regardless of whether it's actually happening or perceived, it still scares people away. And it's still, people still don't want to spend, come visit and play and spend money downtown if there's that, even that perception of crime. So that I really think is something to look at. Mm-hmm.
There's another side of money in the other community. They have perceived issues of crime, all that. Check it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, yes. To answer the question perceived, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll check with the county, with the sheriff department, and ask them about the issues of crime at the other side, like at the other Main Street.
Okay.
Or the issues we have is for the neighborhoods that live around the river Main Street area, and the issues, the ongoing issues we have with crime
Mm-hmm.
and homelessness and crime.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Any other thoughts on weaknesses? Okay. Moving into opportunities and thinking now of where we want to go, more of the future conditions for this area. So I am thrilled about the new brand. I think it's very strong. I think it's modern. I think it's bright. And I spent some time up here in the fall working on that first project, and I noticed a significant difference when you even have these on the light poles. You have the brand, and as you're coming north on US 19, you start to see the brand, and that made a big difference for me today. I think that's new because I was just up here not that long ago taking pictures, and I didn't see that. So I think, logos and branding, it's a an investment that's well worth it. And I'm excited that you're taking the investment seriously, and you've done a marketing study, and you're kind of filtering that brand into your physical signage as well as online, as well as on your shirts. All of these things can go a long way to helping the community develop a sense of pride and helping outsiders really feel like they're somewhere special when they go into your downtown. So I'm excited about that, along with the wayfinding. Helping people navigate your downtown, I think, is really important. So that's up there. Other opportunities, you could create a better transition from the Rivergate area to the rest of Main Street. Why does it feel like such a different place when you get over the bridge? And can we bring some of that excitement and activity and fun things to do over to the Rivergate area and make that a destination in and of itself? So I think that's a great opportunity to connect and bridge those two areas of your downtown. Also, like you see in many other downtowns, when you get there, you know it because there's something welcoming you there. This is a picture from Melbourne, Florida, where you're in historic Melbourne downtown when you approach in your car or walking and you see this big gateway arch that you go through and then, hey, I've arrived, I'm here. And you see that in a lot of great strong sense of place in lots of communities. And I think that there's incredible opportunities for Newport Richey with signage, right? With seemingly smaller scale investments, really create that perception that, hey, I've arrived somewhere special and I'm excited to spend this afternoon here. Or if you live here, hey, like this is my home and my downtown and I've arrived. So I think there's a great opportunities for that in several key points throughout the Rivergate area. Also, opportunities for infill and redevelopment. So taking a look at some of the paved surface area where it may be parking now, but we can kind of think about infill and ways to redevelop certain things, redevelop some of the sites that aren't at their best and highest use currently, maybe vacant. Then they're right along Main Street, which is really a great area to try to create a pedestrian experience like you see throughout the rest of Main Street. So that's an opportunity. Kaiser University coming in on the corner. I think that's a great opportunity to get a different sort of level of activity happening in that area, different diversity in ages of people that you may expect to see downtown. So you can expect different types of uses maybe in demand, but I think that'll be a really interesting mix to have Kaiser moving a little bit more north of US 19 and being a part of your downtown. And then there's also the hotel and the parking garage that's being proposed in those areas that I think could also be a great mix of different uses for that area. Moving to the second column of bullets, the well-designed terrace density. And what I mean here is there are incredible views of your river, which is really the gem, in my opinion, of downtown, this incredible natural river that finds its way through your city. There's views of that if you are able to get high enough. And I'm not talking about a skyscraper. I'm talking about a little bit of scale to be able to see those views of your river. And then on the opposite side, views of the Gulf. Both are achievable, and I think would be a really, really incredible opportunity for the Rivergate area. So that's what I mean by terrace density. So instead of having really tall buildings and then dropping off to low scale buildings, it's got to feel like a natural ascension and decline. And just through design and well-designed density, you can achieve that. And then that brings me to my second point, design guidelines, form-based code, overlay development standards, architectural review. What are these things, right? Really a lot of planning related language here, but really it's just creating structures and guidelines for developers to follow so that when they develop, they're developing something that the community is supportive of, and it looks and feels a certain way. So these are tools that we can think about creating to help guide development in certain directions in terms of scale, in terms of architecture, and what the community is really looking for. So I propose some of those ideas. And then public investments that set the tone and really stimulate private investment. So if the city is able to invest in something that's new and exciting, the boat ramp is an incredible opportunity from some new investment. That can really attract private investors and developers to your area when the city makes that initial investment. And I've seen that, if anyone's familiar with Tallahassee, Florida, I went to school up there for several years and watched an investment happen to this road. It's Gain Street, and it's just near Florida State University. The city invested in Gain Street, and 5-6 years later, Gain Street has really become a place of its own, and it was stirred by this really great investment in the public street infrastructure. So things like that are things that I think should be considered. And then this burgeoning retail downtown and nightlife scene, I've heard through the surveys, I read through some of the surveys that that's something that is exciting and something that this community is newer for this community, and something that I think could be a great opportunity to attract people of a variety of ages and backgrounds. There are actually several slides on opportunities because I think there are great opportunities in this area, but I'll see. Okay, time. So the Blue Way is something that I read in a Pasco County plan. Is anyone familiar with the Blue Way concept? The idea is that the Coty Blue Way, and the idea is that we have this great infrastructure of river that goes right through your city, all the way from north, south, stopping at downtown. So they propose this idea of making that connected network, kind of like you could think of a hiking trail, and the trailhead would be a new boat ramp that's downtown. So people can come in from the Gulf, kind of weave their way through your downtown, or through your historic city, and then end up at a trailhead that's downtown. I think that would be a really unique and exciting thing for someone who's out of towner to come and visit and do, and then park their boat or their kayak and go have lunch, get back on, and then go back out up to wherever they came from. So that'd be something the residents could enjoy, and also something that would attract a unique variety of tourism. So I was really excited to see that. I think that's a great idea. And I'd love to hear your perspective on that. And if there's any issues you think may arise, I'd love to hear what you think about that. Then other related things when it comes to the river, the kayaking, canoeing, paddleboard, fishing, all these river related activities I think should really be emphasized. Wildlife education, I've heard there's manatees in the river, and that there should be an opportunity to really engage with the river and learn from it. There's a few other things related to the environment listed here, connecting our bike and pedestrian trails, because there are networks of bicycle and pedestrian trails throughout the region. There may be great opportunities to connect them so people can navigate to Newport Richey through Newport Richey. There are opportunities for green infrastructure. And when I say that, I mean taking pavement that does not absorb water or even rooftops, things that don't absorb water that you have to then figure out what to do with the water, turning that into something that absorbs water. So grass, turning it into a rain garden, planting native plants that thrive in this type of environment. Those are things that I think are smaller investments that can really give you a huge rate of return and provide a more enjoyable green, aesthetic that I think is really attractive compared to a parking lot, right? Then shade trees. So making sure that the types of trees that are invested can provide shade and create an atmosphere that's enjoyable and comfortable year round. And then community gardens. A personal favorite hobby is gardening. I think that there is a budding garden scene happening in Newport Richey. So I think that that's an interesting thing that could be explored as well. And it serves the purpose of activity related use, but also kind of greening the space. So it has multiple benefits. More opportunities. Let's see, I live in St. Petersburg, and on this slide, you'll see a mural that people really enjoy stopping at and taking pictures of. I think it's really beautiful and bright. I think there's a lot of opportunities for public art in your downtown, and I know that was discussed last week. All of this should really kind of seem familiar because they came from planning processes that have already taken place. So they're just reminders here to kind of frame the next part of our discussion. But variety of retail, no more strip malls, something that someone wrote in a survey. Thinking about different types of food and drink options. I understand there's a lot of bars and a lot of restaurants, but thinking about, well, what can we add that may be a little bit different? Microbrewery was thrown around, more international cuisine, family-friendly sorts of establishments, and a grocery store was listed there. I had lunch at Wright's and I thought it was delicious, but maybe there's a need for more sorts of grocery stores downtown. More outdoor activities, dog parks, farmers markets, festivals, triathlons, things that get people outside. I think are going to be important, especially in the immediate future, that considering the pandemic and outdoor activities seem to be on the rise. And it's Florida. We have such an incredible environment when in the wintertime. So why not really take advantage of that? Then regular small scale events. I put 24/7, 365 days of the year. What sorts of things can we invest in that can get a full amount of use throughout the days, weeks, and into a full year, calendar year? Novelty sites, street performers, vendors, things that can really be a unique experience for someone coming to Newport Richey that they can't find anywhere else. Like, that's going to have to come from the community, right? Like, what are the kinds of things that you all are proud of and want to show people? And maybe we can create some space for that in a master plan. Storytelling for public art. I understand that Newport Richey has a rich history and lots of stories to tell. So why not bring those stories into the public domain through art, through sculptures and paintings, and painting the crosswalks and the intersections, really bringing some of the iconic imagery that only lives in your history books out into the public realm so people can learn about your city. And then again, I touched on this, the photo-worthy murals and sites. People will stop and get out of their car to take a picture in front of something that is photo-worthy, some sort of mural, something that really defines Newport Richey. They'll stop and they'll, want to explore that area more. So I think that that's a small scale investment that can have a really, big impact long-term. Other things that were identified in previous planning was the need for public facilities. So games and exercise, thinking about basketball, tennis, shuffleboard, fitness equipment, running loops. Am I missing anything? Those are just kind of my initial thoughts. And then Wi-Fi and power outlets, making Newport Richey connected downtown so that when people come to visit, if we have even regional tourism, they want to charge their phone, there's a public outlet somewhere they can do that. If they need to jump on the internet while they're taking a break from working somewhere, they can do that. So these are the types of things that cities are thinking about when we think towards the future and making public spaces more comfortable. Last one for opportunities. We want to, a lot of really strong downtowns are designed with this concept called complete streets, a street that's designed for all users. So people who walk, people who roll on wheelchairs, people who bike, people who use golf carts. I understand that there was a conversation last week about, hey, I'm a biker, but everyone's telling me to get on the sidewalk. Hey, I'm on the sidewalk, I'm a pedestrian, and I think the bike should be in the road. So there's some sort of disconnect there. And through planning and design, you can try to make it a complete street that's comfortable for all people who are using it. So that's something that is definitely an opportunity to explore. Another one listed here is improving the local and interregional transportation and connectivity. So if I wanted to, leave my car at home, get on a bus, get to the Gulf and enjoy the beach and get back over here, that wouldn't be such a hassle to do. It would be something that's pretty easy. Those are the goals that we should set and try to achieve. And it's done through targeted investments in certain sort of infrastructure, but it's definitely an achievable thing to be able to connect our region, all of the assets of our region in a unique way. Other things I've listed are pedestrian and bike amenities. So racks, fix-it stations, water fountains, open streets. And this is an interesting concept illustrated with these two images. The idea that during certain times of the day, maybe once a week, we can close the street, not a huge collector road that needs to stay open, but one of the smaller secondary roads. We can close it for a few hours a day and let people enjoy the open space. Let people set up pop-up shops and markets and really enjoy that space. And I know that your Railroad Square kind of dabbles in that concept, and I think there's a lot of great opportunities to expand on some of that. So I listed that there. Electric golf carts, scooter rentals, really cool culture there. Curious if there are people who don't like the scooters and don't like the golf carts that are kind of in this area, because I don't know, my impression from an outsider is that I think that's a unique thing, but throwing it out there. And then thinking about the future of mobility, it's hard to imagine now, but we see it a bit, we hear about it, but driverless cars, there's a lot of research and investment happening in that industry. So I think it's something that should be on our radar when we think about 20, 30 years from now, what we want for our town. Because driverless cars, there are a lot of interesting things that are happening in that domain. And we see it with Uber, similar sorts of impacts. We still have a driver in the car, but you feel more able to just leave your car at home or not even have a car in some cases because of that amenity. So those are all things I've listed as opportunities. Anything else before I jump to threats, the final category in our SWOT analysis? Seeing none, I'll jump through. Threats. I only listed one, I'm sure there are other things that should be on our radar, but I listed one, flooding, stormwater, and hazard risks as a key threat, and something that can be, addressed through design, through investment, but in smart investments. This is a coastal high hazard area around US 19. So there are restrictions in terms of density and residential uses. You'll notice that other cities in the region are exploring these issues. I know St. Petersburg just passed a new order last week that relates to this issue. How do we expand growth in areas that experience a lot of flooding? Well, it really depends on the type of growth we're looking at and thinking about water as something that could be turned into an asset instead of a challenge. So this is a map of the FEMA flood zones, and that a lot of your Rivergate area, everything in the red is AE, which is a 1% annual chance of flooding, AE at about 10 feet. So the base flood elevation is at about 10 feet. So that's something that I identify as a threat, because you don't want to invest in a lot of public tax dollars in an area that's not going to withstand the test of time and the chance of a major hurricane. So that's something that I really feel like it needs to be addressed. So those are our planning team's thoughts. It's a summary of a lot of other planning team's thoughts. And I really want to hear from you all about what you think are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And for those of you at home, I've included an online survey. Everyone here has a little packet with kind of a template of a map to write on. If you're at home, you can find a similar version of that in an online survey. I'll keep that survey open for about a week or two. So, later, if any of you want to pass this link along, I'll keep that open. Or if you think of new thoughts later, you can also fill out the survey and I'll receive that input. But yeah, I'd like to have just a discussion of what you all think are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we'll take a 10-minute break and start to dive into these concept sketches you see on your table. Yes, sir.
I think one of the first downtown would be Boston.
Uh-huh.
And we have downtown and downtown core zoning, which allows different densities and so the downtown to do well, it needs to be dense. To also help businesses be great. We need to look at boundaries of the downtown. I know that we'll work on Wally's issue, the split between two zoning districts, Councilman of Heritage, how do we fix that? The creative process about. Okay. But then the example, there, I'm going to see where it's in. What happened, what's in, half was not. And I guess, we look at north, south, east, and it should downtown be expanded. Particularly Maple or that area, what is the future downtown? Is it the area that's set now, or should it be bigger? I think that we go threat to the growth of downtown. The other thing that we talk about is design standards. But what should we look at density standards? Because the worst thing we build up each year is a single family house. We need to build more density, more dense development for the downtown.
Thank you for that. And I'm not sure if the audience at home can hear, so I'm just going to restate a couple of those things. Oh, they can? Then we're good. Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? Yeah.
Similar, I was going to say when they were down, but under weaknesses, I put the economy and the lack of jobs, lack of good employment. There is a 40-acre tract of industrial property left, I think the last one, out on Ridge Road in all of Westchester. So what kind of employment and what kind of jobs? So it's almost for relying totally on live and work from home. But the opportunity for us to get folks working, something was mentioned by, I think, George as well. And as he also mentioned, the density, that's the weakness. On the opportunities, I'm kind of running from your blue ways and green ways. Just, we're also taking our bike back plan, and that's not complete yet, but the link to the Dunwich Trail and to bring recreational users from our wealthier white-collar county to the north, as Pastor has always been identified as the blue-collar retirement, and I know it's as the white-collar retirement because of the beaches. Opportunities as well on the waterfront. We do have a beach, Richey Beach, which is not recognized or publicized, or there's not even a sign on that connection to get to it, which the city is the one on that property. So that's broader, and I know we're trying to stay in the zone. But to your map where you mentioned the city as the downtown program says that the trailhead, really, if you have another circle to the Great Preserve, you've got the really recreational paddleboarding, more calm activity And that actually puts the city's downtown in the center of two ways.
Yeah. And a quick follow-up question. What about the height of Main Street? Is it an obstacle when it comes to certain sorts of boats? And I mean, I have to imagine we're talking about really small.
Both the bridge is allowing folks to get under for most boats. The fly bridge that has a foldable down. So we have some big boats south of Maine. They can't get past Grand Boulevard right now, so the city has asked the county, because that road, that bridge is vacant, to raise the bridge to the level of the bridge on Madison Street, because we do have a, just from the city, new bridge on Madison Street, which was built higher with the expectation that someday. So it's the Grand Boulevard bridge that will stop the boat traffic, which might be a blessing or a curse depending on whether it's property value or peace and quiet that can be important.
Yeah.
With that. Also, you saw the recreational, and I did have another opportunity. One of our residents brought the idea of a bunny rig. Keith Harrison, the golfer, invented the sandwich in Newport Richey. A lot of people don't know that. I thought it was a good idea, and it was something that people can do in the park. I don't like that.
Great, thank you.
One of the other emphasis to add to Mr. Alden's comments about boat ramps. Boat ramps are great, and they provide opportunity, but for downtown Newport Richey, and this is strictly my opinion, the boat ramp is nothing more than a launch site for people. They don't come and they don't engage in the downtown. They come, they launch, they park, they leave. There is not one stop point on the river that I know of, if somebody can correct me, until you actually get to Port Richey. Before you can actually have a stopping point and engage in some activity. There's not one stop unless you want to cross the river when you launch, you go to City Park. Which people that are launching are going to Derby Key, Antelope, they're going to our facility to utilize it to get out of town and get on the water. There is no attractions on the river. There's beautiful homes, there's a lot of beautiful parks, and side parks, but I don't know what the monetary valuation, except for increasing boat trailers and trucks and finding parking spots. And they take 2 or 3 parking spots up, and that takes away from the regular parking. I noticed that when they park on Main Street, when they park on River Road, they park wherever they can get on the weekend. That's just my take on it. You know, as a downtown business owner, it kind of restricts us unless we have something to allow us to engage with those.
Good, thank you.
I just want to add, and I almost was going to say some of the exact same things that John just made, the points. I live in a house that's literally in front of where all these folks pull in and out with their trailers, and then they come down and have to go way down the road, across Main Street, and go to park in a lot that it just proves that none of them know where they are, and they don't live there, because they don't even make it a lot. They park on the road, they drive too fast, there's speed limit, less speed bumps on the road, they can care less about the road is on this narrow. Our homes are on narrow. And I see on one of the drawings, put another smaller program, and that's kind of completely, but I understand the apartments are there, they choose to park in front of the apartments, they choose to park in front of the commercial ways, and I agree with John, we don't really interact at all within our community, and they cause a hazard within the community. So it's good, I love the idea that we have riverfront access in the city, but we're not charging them to use the ramp, and they're coming from all over. and they're destroying our roads with their heavy trucks and trailers. And quite frankly, I'm not going to speak for all of them, but a lot of them are very nice people because they're not from here. They don't care the way those of us who live here actually care. And if we put some kind of a monetary thing on it, you know, we're going to use our land, so you're going to be, you know, a citizen of Newport Richey, pay X amount of dollars, or not, pay X amount of dollars. At least you can get some revenue to improve those areas of the road. Because the whole road is gorgeous, and the home lots are beautiful. Our homes are really, we have 4 roads and 4 sidewalks that go up and down our homes, and that's where they're driving.
Gotcha. Before we move to the next one, let me just restate some of that because I don't think the folks at home can hear everyone's responses. But we had 2 comments about the proposed idea of doing something more with the river boat ramp that's north of the Main Street Bridge, and thoughts about some of the challenges that come along with that. Where do we put the boat trailers when people are out on their boat, right? And what sorts of activity may that attract? All of these things are great points, and Harry is thankfully taking a lot of notes for us. So we'll definitely think about that for the next phase of the project. Really appreciate your input.
Yeah, just like I mentioned, my opinion, I think we've talked about this before, we Alderman and I talked about it, or Mayor, is that one of the largest, biggest impediments to the healthy growth of our downtown area is our residential stock. I think we've got a long way to go to bring that residential stock where it should be. I think we've got the finest bones for downtown. They're a big part of this West Coast. Getting more and more positive comments on our downtown coming from outside the area for the first time. But when they look for a place to live, I think we're lacking there. We need to do what we can to incentivize people to either purchase these older homes and redevelop them, or knock them down if they're not redevelopable, and put something on there that is going to increase our buying power of the downtown. Because I know when I deal with national companies, you know, throughout the United States, that's one of the first things they look at is what the buying power is.
Right.
If it's not there, they're not going to locate it. So I think expanding the downtown is something to think about, and also to incentivize people to improve the residential stock.
Great, thank you. So essentially, we're thinking we need to think more in detail about the existing housing stock and assess with the quality of housing and how to best improve the real estate profile of Newport Richey in some of these key areas. Certainly, we'll take a look at that. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Yes.
Also on that, not to propose any more of these multifamily sites. We have tons of duplexes all over the community, as well as now we have more State Street Landing and beautiful Central. Now I'm looking here on this very narrow part of the road in one of your sketches, and I'm seeing 4 different areas that you have not necessarily used, but at some point have been considered multi-use. And again, those roads do not support that. So you have to take it into consideration. If you're going to have more families within one unit, whether it be a high rise or something like that, are the roads down the road making that extra?
Great, thank you. So just to summarize that, and we have one more over here. When we think about proposing more density in residential uses, multifamily, there's already a lot of existing multifamily around Rivergate, like different sorts of, I wouldn't say townhomes, more like duplex, triplex type of apartment style. So thinking about what's there already, do we need more? We just got all this new apartments with Main Street landings. And then also the roads, the capacity of roads, or can the roads accept the type of increase in capacity that all of that will bring?
The one thing I have to disagree with you partially. We have too much single family rental duplexes in the city, way too much than the city like the size should have. You know, and the central good example of the new apartments that did not disrupt traffic, that there was sufficient parking, the lane not so much. Just gonna put like a pounds of the back a little bit, but I think that's what we need to look at, and maybe not necessarily on River Road, but look at places that can handle more density. There are places downtown, and here they can handle more density. We need to get more tougher with our landlords. We don't expect the outside, but we don't expect the insides. I think that's the future. Councilman, we need to think about is we need to expect the inside of rental buildings, because when it gets bad on the outside, then it's inside already bad and not livable. And we want the people, and I've seen this sort of condition people are in, we need to encourage more multi-family development in areas that can handle it. You know, if they can't handle it, we can improve the streets around it.
Right.
So not so much, we disagree with what you said. We just need to find the right places to local family. You're rid of these duplexes, you're rid of these single family rentals, you're not good for this. Encourage more ownership.
So just to summarize, again, on this conversation of housing, thinking about inspections, not just of the outdoor, the visibility of the outdoor part of the buildings, but thinking about indoor inspections to make sure that the quality is kept up over time, just basically for the rental housing stock as I see it. And then thinking about ways to encourage home ownership and rethink the types of multifamily and the design of multifamily, and make sure that roads that are in that area can support that multifamily. And if they can't, what ways can we re-engineer or design them so that they could? I'll take, is there anyone else after? We've got two. Okay, so one more and another.
I was thinking, but here's my argument. Accessory dwellings, we have the landlord on the site. It gives more opportunity for people to pay off their loans, their mortgage faster. And there wasn't a thought of that occurred earlier. I don't know where that's at now. It would be a way to increase the volume of people, but we have a responsible owner on site that they have.
Thank you. And that was a comment about ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And that's been, I guess, a conversation that we've been hearing in the city, and to make sure that that's on our radar. I think ADUs offer a lot of different opportunity. So that's definitely something to consider. Thank you. Anyone else? I'll take a last comment, and then of course we'll have this open survey. So if you think of anything, you can use the survey, or you can write things down during the rest of our meeting. If not, we could take a 5-10 minute break, pause quickly, let everyone, stretch their legs, and then we'll resume, but thinking about the concept sketches and the maps on your table. Sound good? And I don't know where the food went. Gone.
So you can let people know if they are hungry.
So it looks like the food is set. So if anybody's hungry, feel free to walk around during this next segment and you can grab some food and then come back to the table. Because I don't want that to be good waste. All right, so let's get into this. So I'm gonna use the microphone this time, because I think it helps people in the back. Okay, there we go. It's funny, it's kind of like school. Nobody wants to sit in the front, right? Everyone wants to sit in the back. Okay. So now we're moving into the next part of the conversation. And I love to show this graph, or this graphic, where you have an incredible opportunity to re-envision what could be for downtown. Is this too loud now? Or is that, okay. So I showed this little comic sketch. Monstrous highway, interstate, super freeway. And what kind of things pop up around it? Do we want our Rivergate area to be just like every American city everywhere that we see, where it's just mega mart, freeway, skyscraper, suburbia? What do we want something like this? Because without any planning and design, sometimes you end up with things like this. So I show this as more of a joke to kind of lead us into this conversation of we have an incredible opportunity with this allocation of land that's happening in this area, concentrated area downtown near the river. What can we do with it? Let's think about that through the next part of this, where I'll ask you, and I talked a lot in that last bit, so I really want to hear from you all about what your vision is for the Rivergate area. And again, if you're at home, there's an online survey, and we'll make sure that this link is circulated to groups who couldn't make it today, either here or online, so that they can provide their input. But at your table, you'll see the packet, and I really encourage you to think about that in more detail and to capture your thoughts on these in this packet for us. And I'll ask you to think about vision strategies. And an example that I came up with for the Rivergate District is the Rivergate District embraces nature. Because I looked at those strengths, I remember all of the planning that's been done about the different strengths and opportunities in the area, and I started to think through statements of a vision for this area. So the Rivergate District embraces nature. It celebrates the unique river access downtown offers, and it offers or presents opportunities to engage with it. So in my vision for the Rivergate area, the river is really celebrated for the jewel and asset that it is. And there are plenty of opportunities to engage with it. There is a regionally connected park and open space system, greenways and blueways that are connected with bike paths, trails, and of course the river. So that's kind of in my visioning for this area. And then the Rivergate District manages water through innovative and resilient solutions. So this embraces nature vision and its 3 supportive statements. That's something that I'm going to take into the next phase of this project and put onto paper and design in 3D a site plan that supports this vision. So I want your input. Am I missing anything? Does this sound about right? Because I'm going to bring these visions to life. Our team's going to bring this vision to life in the next phase of this project. So that's the kind of input that we'd like to generate at this point. So there's the Rivergate Embrace of Nature concept. There is the Rivergate offers new activities. So thinking about development that is modern and cutting edge, but importantly designed at an appropriate scale, and it really puts Newport Richey on the map. Secondly, this Rivergate District, it offers a variety of spaces and places that accommodate a diversity of users. So a lot of different types of people, different ages, backgrounds, they can enjoy all of the different spaces and places in the Rivergate District. Thinking about spaces for events and unique experiences that are distributed throughout the site, not just in one area. Like there may be an opportunity to integrate new and exciting activities throughout the site. So those are some of the things that are guiding me into the next phase of this project. And then a third visioning strategy I'm thinking about is that the Rivergate area is safe and welcoming. And that was something that was inspired by a lot of the survey input of the crime and the issues of poverty and homelessness and joblessness and, you know, some of those types of things, the image of the Rivergate District compared to the rest of downtown. Those are inspired in these vision statements. So the Rivergate District accurately represents and enhances the identity and character of the community. Because right now, I don't know if it necessarily represents what Newport Richey has to offer when you walk downtown in the Rivergate area. So I think that's an important vision to be thinking about moving forward. It's safe and welcoming, and it's safe and enjoyable streetscapes. They frame a welcoming gateway to the rest of downtown. So when you arrive in Rivergate, you know you're there because you feel an environment that's safe and enjoyable, and it welcomes you throughout the rest of the downtown. So that will be a vision strategy that I take into the next phase of the project. And then last but not least, third statement, no one passes by downtown without noticing a significant improvement. Because a lot of people are on US 19 driving right past Newport Richey and don't realize what incredible things that community can offer, what activities and restaurants and places to enjoy outside, the Sims Park, they don't see any of that. But I think in this my vision for this area, which informed by you all, right, is you don't drive without really recognizing that there's been a significant improvement in the area and that, hey, we should go check it out. I heard there's a lot going on over there now. A lot of great investment and improvements and things to do now. So those are my initial thoughts. So I present vision strategies in these 3 topic areas. Are there any other things that you all think about when you envision the future of Rivergate that I'm not picking up on? I know voting was just presented as possible challenges to voting, for conflicts between the business community and voting. Maybe voting should play such a heavy role in embracing nature. I mean, so those are the types of things that I would like input on so that I don't present a vision later this year that does not align with what you all are thinking. So, question, great, thank you.
I'm just thinking in terms of water features that we talked about earlier in the parking area behind the university. If there's a way to connect that water feature that actually connects to the river down the acorn and across, where now you're showing a boat ramp. You could actually have kayaks launched from that water feature. You have inbound parking, it would be taking parking on the riverfront itself. And be more of a control of the traffic. So you can go right down that right away where there's a corner, you have to make it now. A good connect to the river where you're going up at the boat ramp, which nobody really wants. And you have people coming in and out of the river from the access point. You would need this big parking area, change commerce just now.
So, yeah, so presented the idea of there's a smaller boat ramp right out of Main Street Landing. Instead of having both the smaller and the more larger one that's north of Main Street Landing, thinking about turning the smaller boat ramp into a canal that connects to the rest of the green spaces throughout the site. Interesting. Okay, I'm really interested that feedback. I'm thinking about that.
One thing I know we went through with the old Florida State urban planning a couple of years ago. The one interesting concept of that was, pushing the buildings back on Main Street and have open space right on Main Street for activities to occur. And being able to look at that old plan, I don't know, it's 10 years old, but the urban regional plan class of course stated.
Okay.
Because, right now you're looking at this, there's really no space to do anything on that side of the river, right? And I don't want to echo what Chuck said about the Acorn Street, because it's really big for boat ramp. We have other spots on the river. One good example, my daughter lives north of Homecrest. At the end of Homecrest, there's a little city parcel that people keep dumping their refuse on the garbage, or the lawn garbage, the landscape garbage. Whenever we open that up, I wonder if there's more little parcel like that coming down the river. So people like paddle boards and canoes don't necessarily come downtown all the time, but have places also you can go out. So maybe someone press a paddle board down to downtown to enjoy the downtown. So I think we should look at the parcels we own along the river, maybe some that some people would be willing to give us. Because there's some parcels along the river, and there's parcels on the river that make Christmas homes.
Right.
Maybe we can convince those people to let us do that for recreation or something.
Interesting. So just to restate for folks listening in, thinking about the amount, the types of property that the city may already own or could potentially acquire that are along the river to create networks that smaller, more passive boating or paddling or, paddle boarding, those types of opportunities so that we can connect sites through Rivergate and through its surrounding areas. I think that's a really interesting concept. And, please do include, like you specifically were talking about the smaller boat ramp, you sir. So please circle that in your map and we'll definitely take a look at that.
I'll suggest two things, both of which we've kicked around from time to time at council. One is doing something to right-size that section of Main Street to make it more walkable. That would include on the north side, taking a lot of the old strip mall stuff that's there that was built in the 50s and it's just barely adequate.
Right.
Bulldoze and move the buildings up closer to Main Street and put the parking back off of Ridge. And then the other thing that we were actually just kicking around a week ago was the concept of taking the Acorn Street and converting that primarily to a pedestrian type mall. It's already got shade. It could be what Railroad Square has never been before. If we got some of the people that have buildings on Main Street that back up to Acorn Street to reorient things, that could become a very attractive place. You've got 1,000 students and faculty members on one end and Main Street Landing residents on the other end that would take advantage of that in a heartbeat.
Thank you.
Just to maybe correct something that Chuck said nobody wants the boat ramp. I like the idea of the boat ramp for the simple purpose that the Great Reserve is to the other direction, and folks that want to launch a kayak or a john boat or a small boat are overcome by the traffic of a bigger boat ramp. But the idea is great, connecting the lake to the river, particularly doing the same thing we did with Orange Lake, which is when a hurricane is coming and you lower lake, then when the water comes through the downtown drainage, it has a place to go. So we've had floods on Main Street before when the tide was high, storms come in. So I think one of the things that got this process started was a discussion of resiliency of the Regional Planning Council. And I do want to thank you for letting us be the first, one of the first projects, and this is going to be a year-and-a-half project. One of the elements of this is, as I did mention, the flooding. So using the water, however it works out, whether it's boat ramp or not, that water access is critical. And just the other thing to say about this exercise, which is about a very confined area, we keep coming up with ideas that go outside of the boundaries of what this particular exercise is looking at. And the reason for identifying the recreational aspect of this and the potential water access of this is to bring in the higher demographic residents to begin to start filtering through the town. So I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page as the rest of you are, which is we're looking at this to see what can we do here to attract millennials, environmentally sensitive people, folks looking at it the same thing to a responsible, environmentally conscious community that they're caring for the future.
I'll take that mic back real quick. I think it's easier for folks to hear me in the back.
Yeah.
So a lot of really great points. And another thing to clarify is we're working on the TPRPC is working on a master plan, but again, with that focus of what if. So if we decide, hey, we like the boat ramp north of Main Street Landings concept, we also like to see that with other things there. We can develop more than one what if scenario for specific smaller sites. So I think as a result of this meeting, we can kind of go back and say, hey, they really liked talking about boat ramp. Let's show it in a few different options. Because all of this can help inform the broader master planning that's happening as we take a smaller, more targeted approach in our project. So one thing that Councilman Altman mentioned that I forgot to show in the previous part of my presentation was this, we did some studying on the flooding issues, and we have a very skilled animation planner in our office, Marshall Flynn, who created this little animation. and the black lava is actually supposed to be water. It's the wrong color, but it'll show you, this is a simulation of a category 3 storm surge set up, but this is the type of flood that you could expect. And he flooded a virtual site, a 3D model that I made for that project, where it shows, it's basically a big lake, kind of like Orange Lake, but it's designed to capture water. So with that in mind, let's see what the impact of that storm surge looks like if that lake could be filled. You'll see the lake on the bottom part of the animation filling up, and then you'll see how the buildings are elevated. They're elevated to a point in which the category 3 storm surge isn't going to flood the important, parts of the building because of that elevation. So here's that shown. See the bus kind of get out of the way. So you can see the lake is filling up. It's really a stormwater retention infrastructure. And then you see a new storm drain that is taking that water and making sure that it goes somewhere else, somewhere outside. So when you think about Rivergate in general, we're thinking about designing with that stormwater mindset. So I like these concepts of creating more of a winding water feature that can go from a stormwater retention lake somewhere on our site that is attractive in its own sense, but it's also providing that resilience value, and then some sort of winding stream or connection that you can kayak to bring you into Coatee River and down throughout that blueway. So I think that's certainly something we can visualize kind of imagine what if we had something that looked like that. So back to the PowerPoint, let me make sure I can. I had issue with this earlier. Looks good for you all, but it doesn't look great for the audience at home, unfortunately. I don't know how to. Is that, no, it's not good for you all. Ish. Okay. No. Bear with me. Ah, there we go. How's that? Perfect, okay. Audience at home is seeing presenter view, and I would like them to see what you all can see. So on this slide, I'm showing that the second phase of the project will come back, and Harry, Randy, and I will get to work visualizing different sorts of development options. We'll have a 3D model that shows everything within the planning boundary, but we'll also really hone in and provide more detailed analysis on 4 sites. So those 4 sites, as they are today, are Main Street, an urban park, this idea of floodable urban park that's attractive and also helps us with the stormwater issue. Boat ramps, number 3, which is something that I think we can kind of explore. And after what we learned from this conversation, maybe we should rethink number 3. And then across the bridge. So this is this area that's across from the Hacienda Hotel. So those are the 4 really different sites that we're going to be exploring in detail. And before we get into the concept map, I'd just like to give you some more background on what's inspired the concept planning this far. I mentioned I lived in Tallahassee. Another project in Tallahassee that I really think is really well done is Cascades Park. And Cascades Park is a stormwater management facility. But the everyday person would not know that because it's a beautiful urban park. That it provides nearly 24/7 use. It's a lot of activities. It's got activities that are no cost at all, but also has restaurants and things of that nature, and it's an amphitheater. It's a really nice, well-done park, but it also captures water, and areas that do flood in the city now are designed to bring that water to Cascades Park, where it can be treated on site in a natural process and filtered through the park and then be brought out of the area. So I think that's an inspiration for this urban park concept. How do we create navigable waterways? As Cascades Park is not navigable, but I think that Rivergates Park potentially could be, and I think that would be a really interesting way to solve this stormwater problem. And speaking of navigable rivers, this is an inspiration from Detroit, where they offer canal tours of the historic buildings throughout their city. And I think that's so neat. I would do that. That sounds great. I think that'd be a lot of fun and a great way to spend an afternoon. So I think that's something that potentially could happen here. Another inspiration, really thinking about Main Street now, designing for resiliency in terms of the buildings. So are they elevated? Does the whole site need to be elevated to a degree? How do we make sure that these buildings are designed to take on water? Because we know that we're prone to hurricanes. So are they elevated? Is the ground level containing things that if they were to get flooded, it wouldn't be the critical sorts of electrical systems of a building, right? These are the types of things you might not notice, but when we're in the design of the building, these are the types of things that need to be considered. Green infrastructure, again, the greening spaces so that you can take on water is a really important design intervention. In this graphic, you'll see really 2 graphics. The one in the background is something that we drew for Newport Richey in that first project, where you show the floodable park in the background, and then you show a hotel, but there's a green roof system on the hotel. And you see more sustainable energy sources, so maybe taking use of solar energy, which is becoming more affordable and more practical for different sorts of projects. And then in the smaller image, you'll just see a different architecture firm. They did a rendering of kind of what you can expect the building architectural style to look like. So a little bit more modern, but not too extreme. We have a comment here.
research question.
Yeah.
I think solar panels, which is awesome. But would some of the newer taller buildings have maybe like a rooftop terrace? You mentioned something like that.
Yeah.
How would you question?
If that's something that we think there's a demand for, we can absolutely show. And I suggest anything that you envision or think could be explored for design, write it down and I can show it. Because I think that'd be a really great idea. Like I said, there's great views of the river and the Gulf that can be explored. For those at home, he suggested a rooftop terrace, which I think could be really neat. So another diagram I like to show is this concept of flexible space, and you're designing a building that has multiple uses. It's not just residential, it's not just commercial, it's not just office, it's not just shops. There's things you can do with it if you want to design for the form and less of thinking about what dedicated use it has to have. So when I think about Main Street, I think there's an opportunity to do infill and redevelopment that is mixed use, mixed income, so a variety of sizes of units so that we can attract a variety of different income levels, making sure the units aren't too big to be unaffordable, but also, not too small. Then you have a mix of sizing of units. And then this idea of live, work, and shop. So you may be able to live in this building, people may be able to work in this building, and be able to shop in this building. So the idea of smaller strength commercial units would be an important thing to consider so that we have businesses can actually afford, some of your smaller scale businesses can afford a spot in these types of buildings. So I think a lot of times you see a new commercial development, but you don't attract the type of business you're interested in because the square footage of the commercial space is just too large. You're going to get a big chain that comes in there and not a local business that could afford it. So I think that's an important thing to be thinking about. And then last point on this is Kaiser University coming in. And I think I lived in Tallahassee, it's a college town, and there were a lot of opportunities to study in coffee shops, and there's that culture there. There could be a really great way to create a live, work, study space, a shared working space that can be used by those Kaiser students as well as the broader community. Another graphic, this one's really neat. We have this concept of planning called the missing middle, and we sometimes refer to it in the housing world, but this idea that there are more types of housing between single family and apartments, right? There's all this stuff in the middle. You could have cottages, you could have cottage courts, duplexes, multiplexes, townhomes, live-work sort of arrangements. So there's that missing middle of variety of housing type. Instead of just thinking about the two boxes, single family homes and general apartment complex, there is all the stuff in the middle that can be explored. Same thing for commercial uses. So it's not just your small commercial unit and then your giant big box mall. There are tons of things in the middle that can be thought through, like tents, food trucks, trailers, they call them pods, micro retail. I think someone referred to them as the containers, the container concept, the shipping containers. Smaller retail, and then a mixed use building that has first floor retail and restaurants potentially, and then third, fourth, fifth floor could be residential uses of some sort. This is Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado, which is one of my favorite public spaces. It is not a street for cars. It is street owned and controlled by people. It is a beautiful, beautiful site. You see street performing there. You see a lot of activity in that public area, and then it just attracts a ton of people walking by these restaurants and retail opportunities. So I think this pedestrian mall sort of concept is very interesting and something that really could take hold in Newport Richey if it's designed appropriately. Here's a rendering of a site in New Orleans called Elmwood Center. And a similar concept here. You can park and then get out of your car and walk through this pedestrian mall that's framed with different commercial uses. And this is something that I proposed in the concept plan, which I'm going to walk you through right now. But it would look something similar to this, probably not as tall, right? Not as much density and scale, but the concept is similar, that you would be able to walk through the site to get to where you're going. So here's the concept sketch, and you'll all see it on the table in a bigger version because it's pretty small on here. But I'd just like to kind of talk through it to give you a sense of what I was really thinking and kind of connect it to the images I just showed you. So if you're looking at the concept sketch, and let's start at the top left part of the break route coming off US 19 into Main Street. And this is really conceptual in nature. It's intended to represent potential uses, not really exact by any means. So the concept of a gas station on that corner, right? And then the concept of Kaiser University or educational use in the other corner. And then you'll note there's a little tiny purple spot on that map where the city has acquired that land to do some sort of welcoming public feature there. So I think that that's something that I'll definitely be including in my 3D model is some sort of welcoming public site there at the very front of Main Street. And then as you're walking through, I marked with a star. I think that an entry feature of some sort, a gateway, something that welcomes you to downtown would be a great contribution. And I think that's something I'm going to include in the 3D model when I come back next time. And then as you're going through Main Street, you'll notice that there are streets that I've drawn in that are going to the south, streets that aren't really there now. So this is a new street network that I've been thinking about because I know there's this issue of traffic on Main Street. So what if there was an easier way to get out of Main Street besides taking US 19? Or instead, what if there was an easier way to get to US 19 from the bridge? So in this concept sketch, I'm proposing that you can go south and then drive down a corridor that's framed with green space to get you to that roundabout. And that big roundabout is kind of similar to what you see at Sims Park. And that'll bring you down south out of the site back to US 19. So that's a concept I'm exploring, how to create more north to south connecting routes in and out of Main Street. And again, if you want to come to Main Street, you can turn right as you're making your way north up the US 19. You can turn right a little bit before Main Street and take this path that brings you through green spaces, brings you around a park. It brings you to the right if you wanted to go up Bridge Road, excuse me. Or you can just continue, go north, go past the dog park, go past the church, get yourself onto Main Street in a different way. So those are two, that's a concept I'm exploring, the way to reconfigure the street network to alleviate traffic. Another point here is I propose a transportation hub. You'll see in the legend there's a little bus and bike symbol. That concept is just to have a one site that really, the purpose there is transportation. And I don't think it would be like a bus depot, but it would be something that's attractively designed where if you want to take a bus, that's a great place. That's your like entry spot. And that's where everybody who's traveling regionally would be dropped off. That's where the Ubers and the Lyfts and all of that car sharing would take place. That's where the bike facilities would be. It'd be a one-stop shop for any transportation-related services and facilities. You also see in the concept map a lot of pedestrian paths and sidewalks throughout the site will be an important part of this concept design. And then on Main Street, a lot of mixed-use style buildings. As you're going down Main Street towards the rest of downtown, you'll see there's Main Street Landing. On the north part of Main Street, we proposed this the purpose is riverfront access and activities. The possible way to implement that purpose would be through a redeveloped boat ramp site. And then another smaller boat ramp south of Main Street Landing, which we've discussed have different sort of use. So we'll explore that too. And then you cross Main Street, and I'd really like the feedback on this concept of an under the bridge riverwalk. Because I know there's a lot of traffic on Main Street, and I know there are a lot of people walking around, but what if you could, from the river, from the redeveloped boat ramp site, get on a path that brings you under the river, over the boats, but under the bridge to get you to Sims Park. and to avoid having to cross the street altogether. Just throwing it out there. Yes? Yeah, you can talk. Yep.
The tide is high, that river is too low.
Okay. The river, like it wouldn't be enough space to get under the river water.
You could, you're adding sidewalk there, all of us that have houses just like the end of that river, under that bridge, then you go.
I see. I see. So exploring that.
That's when you have a limited sidewalk in bridge,
Mhm.
in those.
Okay, so an issue of space, and during the tides, if it was a floatable walkway, or if it was something that was only accessible during low tide, something like that could be explored.
Because a lot of us that come on that side, on the side, we go.
Okay. Okay, good. This is really good feedback. Thank you. Yeah?
I just wonder if we have a district business on the bridge. I mean, I walk my house on the bridge every day to cross the road and the other way.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a walk, Why? Is this an issue for safety, just an issue for needs? I don't even see the purpose.
Yeah. So the comment or the question is, this river, under the bridge river walk, what problem are we trying to solve? Is it an issue of safety, or is it just something that would be really neat to explore? I don't know. I think it's just something that was a possibility, and I kind of included it in the concept to get your feedback at this stage.
But you're saying you're walking parallel to the river, I thought you were trying to include it to walk across the river. You already have an express sidewalks across the river.
Right. I think it would be another way to just be closer to the river, and then you could potentially use the sidewalks that are on Main Street as sites for pop-up shops, or if that could accommodate other sorts of activity, if you were to create another walking route for other people that was to decide with it. It kind of would expand the bridge in a sense.
I think if you look at the map, you have dotted lines going along the bridge.
Mhm.
And I think that's the point. Going along the edge of the seawall is what you're talking about, and I think that's what she's asking. Are you talking about going under the bridge instead of over the bridge?
Right, I guess under is the problematic word here, beside the bridge.
So we already have a super wide bridge walkway, so you're not talking about modifying that more. We have like, what, 12, 14 feet wide sidewalk, 15 feet wide sidewalks on the bridge now.
Yeah, so I think generally kind of exploring what sorts of ways that we can take a look at the bridge and think about, hey, because right now we have some pretty, like the concrete blocks, I don't know if they're movable, the pedestrian seating. So it's like kind of thinking,
They're gone.
oh, okay, well, then we're good. Yeah, so I'm gonna like rethink the bridge pedestrian access issue and kind of take all your feedback into consideration.
Well, you wouldn't know this, one of the reasons we used to be able to walk on the bridge along the sidewalks in conjunction with across the river many years ago, because homeless people started crying over there. So they had to go out there, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And so they had to go.
okay. All very important things to know, so thank you. So, moving on to over the bridge, because there's this fourth concept that we're going to explore, which is to, let's say you turn right after Beef Brady's and you are greeted by some multi-use. There's that vegetated area, lots of great trees there, so it's like things to be thinking about there in terms of tree coverage. But what can we think about when it comes to the mixed use type of commercial that space could provide? And then we have Nebraska Avenue. There's the concept of continuing Nebraska Avenue so that you continue it through that parcel, and then you continue it all the way to the river to create another public riverfront access site that does not currently exist. So what are thoughts about that?
and my property too.
Right. So it would, clearly we'd have to discuss all of it with the surrounding property owners.
Person who owns the property that you want to split in Nebraska also owns the purple property on the side, so you know.
Okay.
So, and there is, well, not necessarily one that they're returning to the house or building that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's that idea, it's a great idea, it's right, piece, but then you do have to deal with the tax that have to be houses.
Right. Yeah, so the, considering the type, the surrounding property owners and what their interests are for that part of the area, there's going to be issues of dividing that parcel, creating pedestrian network there, continuing it all the way to the river. So it may require some allocation of property, but, all things that are conceptual, but maybe interesting to explore, maybe interesting to see some visioning that's taking place there. Yep.
I think the two things tied together to me. One is the security issue we've all talked about and the sort of infiltration of the homeless. First of all, for all of us that live in that area, and I do too, it's the dark places. Even in Bank Street in Maine right now, if you're on Bank Street, there's a bunch of palm fronds up against the building, and I'll guarantee you somebody's sleeping there tonight because I saw it 2 days ago. So the idea of buffering is important for the residents who live outside of that. That old bake shop, I used to run it for the owner. And then it was the restaurant, and it's just beautiful down there, and it would be a great public access to get there. So I would love to see it be a public space, but I think that buffering is always a critical point of pushing anything that's high index for all of the planners, I know, to make sure you have something that provides that privacy.
Right.
But it also, in the bigger piece, can add to the security by making it so folks can't infiltrate into those areas. So I'm not a big fan of fences and walls, but in a sense, you almost are going to have to take this new area and make sure that it doesn't lead a problem one way or the other.
That's a really good point. So considering buffering and fencing and those needs when we rethink this new potentially riverfront public site. And when I thought through this concept of continuing Nebraska, because there's Railroad Square and all this great pedestrian potential there, and then it stops, but the river's right there. So how do we connect people to a riverfront access point? So that will have to take some more consideration and planning, but I think as a concept, it's still on the table to kind of explore what if we did that. And I think with there's like Beef O'Brady's newish development, and I think that, I don't know if that was a kind of like a missed opportunity because it doesn't quite engage with the river in a way that it could. So thinking about other ways to bring some public access there just south of it may be an interesting thing to explore. And then I have another little line of a pedestrian path that brings you to Sims Park without having to go the other way around. So another thing to be thinking through. But again, all of the issues of, is it necessary? Is it physically possible? All of those things will have to be thought through a little bit more. So we have just about 5 minutes. So I want to get you out here on time, but I encourage you to really provide your feedback on these handouts, because that's going to help us. That's what we need to kind of move into the next phase of our project is your input. And as a reminder, the project schedule, we're going to wrap up the task 1 inventory and analysis at the end of this month, where our team will prepare a SWOT analysis summary. So summarizing that SWOT that I presented, but of course incorporating your feedback into it. And then also the feedback of others who weren't able to attend through this online survey. So we'll provide this analysis summary to the city by the end of this month. And then we'll really switch gears and start to think about conceptual planning and design and create 3D visualizations, economic analyses, and present all of the results of those to the city council and invite the public to attend in January at a date that hasn't been announced yet, but I'm sure we will all make sure that you all are aware of that date. So really thinking about how we can get there as a shift for this project. So we'll create the 3D visualizations, the 3D models, and we'll provide supplementary economic analysis of not only what this could look like, but what are some of the impacts financially and economically of these sort of development possibilities. And then a final reminder, I really encourage you to attend the events that are happening later this month. There's an urban design charrette, so you'll really have an opportunity to provide input on what they're thinking through, and really maybe interesting to compare some of the concepts discussed here with what they're going to propose at their urban design charrette. And then they also have a public presentation happening later this month. And with that, I want to thank you for participating today, and really, please share your feedback. And if you want to contact me, if you think of anything else and want to provide further input on this process, I list my email address here, and I really encourage you to do so. So thank you all.